안녕하세요. 여러분의 한국어 선생님 고빌리입니다. Twice now I've done videos where I grade some of your Korean journals and provide feedback and corrections. And in this video, I want to show you how you can write your own journals. But first, why should you? Well, I found that most Korean learners vastly underestimate the amount of time they need to be practicing Korean in order to see fast improvement. Now, practicing Korean can be just speaking with or chatting with a friend online. It can be making your own example sentences, but journals are often overlooked as a method of practicing because they can be, well, boring. But writing a short journal, whether you do it every day, every week, or even just every month, can be not just a way to practice using what you're learning, it can become its own progress record that you can look back on in the future and clearly see how much your Korean has improved. And there's something motivating about pulling out old letters that I've written and reading them back to myself and thinking, yeah, I've gotten better. So now it's your turn to get better by writing in your journal, and I'm going to show you how. But first, if you'd like to see more videos like this on my channel, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, please consider supporting this channel by joining my Patreon page, which helps me to be able to keep making more and better content. The most obvious thing that people consider writing about is what they did that day or what they're going to do. But I actually think this is often the worst thing to write about because if you've got a busy schedule of school or work, there often isn't much to say. 오늘도 학교에 갔다. I went to school again. 오늘도 회사를 다녔다. I went to work again. And repeat this forever. So I recommend that unless you're doing a lot of traveling or social activities, and I certainly don't, then to instead focus on just writing about things that interest you. So write about your hobbies or a hobby that you'd like to get into. For example, I'm interested in cooking, so I could write about a recent recipe that I tried that failed. It's been a full week actually, and my sourdough starter still isn't ready. Also, not just your interests, but write about your goals. So what do you want to do? Not for today, but perhaps a year later or more. Do you dream about visiting Korea someday? And finally, if you've exhausted all of these options already, then try just writing how you feel about a topic or your opinions on something. For example, write about the most recent movie or video that you've watched, or a book you've read, or a game you've played. Write about how Team Fortress 2 is 16 years old and still getting updates. So that should help point you in the right direction as far as what you can write. Now, here's how to write a journal. First, for brand new beginners, so for those of you who've learned the alphabet and some phrases and simple grammar, but not much else, there are no rules you need to know in order to write a journal. Don't worry about the correct politeness levels to use or the right vocabulary words or expressions. Just write. Okay, for those of you who aren't brand new anymore, here is everything you need to know. Get ready. If you want to start your journal with the date, use the format year, month, day. So that would be 년, 월, 일. For example, November 19th, 2012, which is the day I started my YouTube channel, would be written like this. 2012년 11월 19일. The next thing you should do is to only write using what's known as the plain form and other plain styles of writing. So that means use the word 나 to say I or me instead of 저. And this is because while 저 shows more respect and humility, for journals or anything that's not being addressed to another person, 나 is more appropriate. So let's talk briefly about the plain form, which is fairly simple to conjugate. To conjugate an action verb to the plain form, you just attach 는다 to its stem if it ends with a consonant, or you'll attach a nian followed by 다 if it ends with a vowel. So 하다 would become 한다, since 하, the stem, ends with a vowel, and 먹다, meaning to eat, would become 먹는다, because 먹, the stem of 먹다, ends in a consonant. And to conjugate a descriptive verb to the plain form, you'll just leave it as it is. So 맛있다, for to be delicious, would just be 맛있다. And to make the past tense of the plain form, it doesn't matter what kind of verb you have. Just conjugate it normally in the past tense and then add 다 once you get to the double 시옷 letter. That's this one here. So 하다, for example, would normally become something like 했어요. So you would get 했다, 했다. And there are a few exceptions for certain verb stems, but I'll keep things simple for this video. Next, I said use plain speech, so avoid verb endings that would add any sort of emotion to your sentences, such as 네요, for example, as well as the grammar forms only used for speaking, like 더라고요. Technically, what you want to be using is called 문어체, also known as 쓰기체, meaning writing style. And there are actually just rules that you can memorize for how to use this, so let's go over those briefly. Now, writing style is what you'll use whenever you're completing a test or writing an essay, and it includes the plain form. It includes using 나 instead of 저. But it also includes conjugations that you would use when asking rhetorical questions. So when you want to write a question to yourself in your journal. And let's go over that form here too. So to make questions, you'll use the 가 ending. For action verbs, you'll attach 는가, so 하다 would become 하는가. And for descriptive verbs, you'll attach 은가 if the stem ends in a consonant, or a nian followed by ga if the stem ends in a vowel. So the verb 좋다, meaning to be good, would become 좋은가 since it ends in a consonant, and the verb 크다, meaning to be big, would become 큰가. And again, there are a few exceptions for some verb stems, but I'm keeping it simple for this video. Next, for making a suggestion to yourself or saying let's do something, use the regular 자 ending, which means let's. So 하다 would be 하자. And next, to make a command to yourself, you would attach 으다 after a verb stem that ends with a consonant, and 라 if it ends with a vowel. So 가다, to go, would be 가라. 찾다, to find, would be 찾으라. Now, if you're just writing a journal, that's all you need to know about this sort of writing style. And the majority of the time, you're just going to use the standard plain form, 는다 or 니은 다, as we saw from before. But if you were taking a test, you would also, in addition to these, want to avoid any sort of casual or informal speech. And this includes slang or any sort of shortened grammar forms. But if you would like to know even more about this style of writing, definitely check out my free course, Master Politeness Levels, and I have a full explanation in the final episode. Okay, so you now know the technical aspects of writing a journal or writing an essay as well. The next thing that you'll want to do is to get it checked. And this is especially useful if you write journals more frequently, because getting feedback will help you to avoid repeating those same mistakes over and over again. Some resources you can use for this purpose are the apps HelloTalk and Tandem, the website HiNative, or just by hiring a tutor on a website such as italki. Now, if you're only writing a journal once every few months, just as a record for yourself, you can probably skip this step. But I think it's still helpful. So now that we've talked about how to write a journal and how you can get corrections, let me show you a couple of examples. Here's a journal that's actually from my book Korean Reading Made Simple, and you'll notice that it has a title. This isn't necessary at all in your journals, but you don't always have to put just the date. The first sentence here is 다음 주는 어머니의 생신이다. So next week is my mother's birthday, and notice that it ends with 이다, so the plain form. Now, I'm not going to cover every sentence in this journal. If you want, you can read the full explanation of everything in the book, but let's just look at some of the verb endings. 골라보기로 했다. Again, the plain form here in the past tense. All of these sentences just use the regular plain form, which is the most common way to end sentences in a journal. And if you read the whole thing, they're not even talking about their day. They're just talking about meeting up with a friend and trying to decide what to buy for their mom's birthday, which is a week away. Okay, one more journal example, and this is actually one of my journals that I wrote for a video that I did about grading journals. And the main thing that you might notice is the paper has drawings of toast on it. And I, of course, started with the date. This one was from November, and then I wrote about mixing together one of my favorite drinks, which is made of blueberry lemonade and a carbonated soft drink with milk called Milkus, and it's actually really good. I end this journal also by just writing that I sat on a bench and drank it while watching people pass by. So as you can see in these two examples, one by a native speaker and one by myself, that you don't need to write about anything substantial in order to have a journal. You just have to write something. Now, before we go, here are a few more tips. keep your journal and whatever you use to write it close to where you spend the most time. Whether that's at your work desk or next to your bed, the more that you see your journal, the easier it'll be to remember to write something in it. And if you put it away on your shelf, then unless you create reminders for yourself in a calendar, it's really easy to just forget. Second, your journals can be short, especially if your goal is to write one often. Even just a few sentences is plenty. Don't try to write your own Lord of the Rings trilogy every single time you sit down, or you're not going to want to do it anymore. We don't like that, precious! Seriously, just 2 or 3 sentences is fine if you can't think of anything to write. Now, if your goal is to write a journal not every day, but say once a month, then that's when I might recommend filling up a page and spending a bit more time. But it's up to you how much and how often you want to write, so I'd say that as long as you're writing something, then give yourself a pat on the back. So have you ever written a journal in Korean? How often do you write them? And do you have any more tips? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more lessons like this one. Also, if you would like to support me, please consider joining my Patreon page or becoming a member on my channel, and I'll put links to those in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time. 그럼 다음에 또 봐.